She went for a run and disappeared. After 38 years, the horrifying truth shocked the world. A 16-year-old Joyce McLean went for a run and disappeared, leaving her community in shock and terror. The case remained unsolved despite 38 years of tireless searching until the haunting truth was finally uncovered. Shockingly, the case could have been solved in just a few weeks, but it took nearly 4 decades to solve the horrifying mystery that left the town gripped in fear. Joyce McLean was born on September 4th, 1963. When she was a young girl, her family relocated to a tiny town called Millinocket, located almost on the border of the United States. Since she was young, she always had a strong interest and love for her music. The girl quickly mastered music and numerous instruments, but her favorite was the saxophone. Music was her favorite subject in school, and she was a member of the school's music club. She was a cheerleader squad member, played soccer, and actively participated in school life. At the end of the summer holiday in 1980, Joyce was preparing for her approaching 17th. She had recently received her driving license and was arranging a party at the beach for her 17th birthday with her friends and relatives. She also intended to go to college after graduating from high school. On a Friday evening, August 8th, 1980, Joyce decided to go for a run. She started her route behind the school and continued to go to the town. Passing Schneck High School at roughly 7:45 p.m., she was spotted turning a corner and coming down to the baseball and soccer fields, where she usually runs laps. Unfortunately, she never returned from her jog. Her mother became increasingly worried when Joyce didn't come home that night. She searched for her daughter, driving around town and asking neighbors if they had seen her. Unfortunately, no one had seen Joyce. As the night wore on, her mother became more and more concerned and eventually called the police for help. The police joined the search for Joyce but were unable to locate her. 2 days after she disappeared, a search volunteer named Peter Larley discovered the victim's lifeless body in the woods behind the school soccer fields. The girl was lying on the ground and most of her clothes were missing. Her hands were tied behind her back and the police noticed a severe head injury. Despite investigating the crime scene, they could not find any DNA sample on the victim's body. The news of the heinous crime spread rapidly throughout the community, causing shock and fear. Residents were extremely anxious with their loved one's safety when they realized the killer was on the loose. As a result, parents discouraged their children from playing outside the park and people began locking their doors. There's a mystery surrounding the death of Joyce, as it still is unclear what exactly happened leading up to her passing. Several theories have been presented, but no one knows what occurred. One possibility is that locals bothering her at the soccer field may have killed her and tried to assault her. Another theory is that day laborers from the nearby paper mill may have murdered her. However, despite investigations and speculation, no one has ever officially identified a suspect in Joyce's case. The community of Millinocket honored Joyce McLean, who was murdered years ago, with a memorial service on the 8th anniversary of her death. Joyce was killed in a field, a popular meeting place for locals, and there are 2 theories about the identity of the murderers. One suggests that it could have been locals drinking and harassing her, while the other suggests that workers from a nearby paper mill may have been responsible. Regardless, the community wants to remember Joyce and show that she will always be a part of their town. The mill hired 300 non-resident workers and investigations failed to solve Joyce's death. This has caused pain for Wendy and the town, who still seek justice. After years of trying, Joyce's body was exhumed in 2008, revealing new evidence. However, the gravesite was vandalized in 2009, and it is unclear if it relates to the murder. The case was reopened, and Philip Fournier was implicated with new evidence and witnesses confirming his involvement. Based on the evidence presented, Fournier was identified in 2009 as a person of interest. However, it wasn't until March 2016 that he was finally arrested and charged with the murder of Joyce. It is impossible to note that Fournier had been under the suspicion since the beginning of the investigation. On the night Joyce was killed, a man named Fournier stole an old truck and crashed it near where Joyce's body was later found. Fournier's mother, stepfather, and pastor heard him admit to being involved in Joyce's death. He later confessed to investigators multiple times, implicating other men who were ruled out as suspects. Years later, Fournier admitted to misleading investigators by falsely implicating others in the case. Fournier was then seen near the school with a bottle of hard liquor when Joyce went missing. He later confessed to killing her with the liquor bottle and was seen running away from the area where her body was found. Before her death, Fournier had expressed interest in Joyce and mentioned wanting to walk, which she often did. During his confessions, Fournier accurately described specific details of the crime scene that were never released to the public, such as telephone insulator found next to Joyce's body that he claimed hit her. He also knew that Joyce's hands were tied behind her back, that she was lying on her stomach, that her hair was tied back with a ribbon, and that she was in her menstruation when she died. It was Fournier's Evan who led an officer to the body of Joyce. This type of evidence suggests that Fournier was likely responsible for Joyce's murder. In simple terms, Fournier was found guilty of murder after being charged with the possession of child pornography, burglary, and theft in the past. His defense argued that his confessions went unreliable because he had been injured in a truck crash. They also pointed to another possible suspect, but the police had already ruled them out. Fournier went to trial in January 2018 and was found guilty of first-degree murder in February. He was then sentenced to 45 years in prison back in April. In February 2019, he was then found guilty and sentenced to life in prison.